The world is changing in ways that seem to be faster than most of us can process. What looks like a divide is an opportunity to build bridges. The Road with Cove Queen Janine Sullivan is 1 hour that connects with people from all over the world, finding ways to orchestrate our oneness. Yes, we have more in common than we may sometimes perceive. Tune into The Road with Cove Queen Janine as we discover answers to life's most interesting questions and build a bridge of love. Come on in. Join me on this adventure. I want to know how you plan to change your precious corner of the world.
Welcome, everyone. You are listening to The Road with Cove Queen Janine. I'm so happy to be with you today. I am your host, Janine Willett Sullivan. You can hear my show every Wednesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time over Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, and you'll find that by searching for dreamvision7.com. I invite you to tune in and take a look at all the wonderful programming that Dream Vision 7 Network is offering, and take a look at all their hosts and the fabulous topics they have, and take a peek into their archive section where you'll find my past shows. This show is here for the listeners. Each week I strive to bring interesting guests who have topics that I believe will make a difference in our lives. The Road with Cove Queen Janine is a program that is designed to build bridges where gaps exist. I really feel quite strongly about this. The more we get to know about one another, the easier it is to close those gaps that we perceive. I have a wide array of guests, but each and every one of them has a common thread. Each and every guest has ideas, tools, and suggestions that are designed to help us all tap into our gifts, move forward, overcome challenges, all that sort of thing. We're here on this program to move life along in a positive direction. Today I have a guest that's very interesting. One might not think that his particular career would be that of a bridge builder, but I do, and I'm sure he will. His name is Brian Fox. He's a nationally renowned artist specializing in painting athletes and celebrities. His forte and passion centers around sports and music, but his ability and experience really extends far beyond that scope. Brian Fox has painted some of the biggest icons of our time, including Jackie Robinson, Keith Richards, Mark Wahlberg, Johnny Depp, Muhammad Ali, who I actually love Muhammad Ali, and I love that painting, and so many more, too many to mention, really. Over the course of Brian's 20-year career, he has forged numerous relationships with athletes and organizations. I'll name a few of many. He's been involved with the Major League Baseball Players Association, the National Hockey League, and Beckett Foundation. Brian has been selected as the official commemorative artist for Major League Baseball's 2007, 2008, and 2009 All-Star Games. And I encourage you today, while you're listening, if you're near your computer, pull up his website, brianfoxstudios.com, and you can have a look at his fabulous work right while we're having this delightful conversation. You'll be able to just see everything he's done. It's just impressive. There's so much more I could list about Brian's illustrious career, but let's get him in here and have him tell us his fabulous story. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, Janine. Thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you on the show today, and equally as thrilled to share with the listeners your work and your story. If you don't mind, I'd love to kind of start at the beginning.
Sure.
And I'm not sure where you see the beginning, but I'm wondering when you first realized that you loved art and you wanted to pursue a career in art.
Well, I think as most artists, it usually goes back to being a kid and most kids love to draw or paint or do something creative, and when you get encouraged by those around you, like your parents or your siblings or other family members, that kind of pushes you in that direction. And then, after high school, I went to college, and again, encouraged and prompted by my parents to kind of go to college, and I was the first person in my family to even attempt going to college, and they were like, "Oh, you're going to go to school for art," and I kind of went in that direction, and that kind of set me in my path. It's changed quite a bit as far as how I've ended up where I am today. I started out in a completely different direction, but it's always been art related, or in the commercial field, or working with my hands in some fashion.
Mm-hmm. I have to think, as a little boy, even crayons were far more interesting maybe than Legos, let's say, and probably as you got a little older, a paintbrush was more fascinating than a wrench or a hammer. Would I be right? Did you know early on that you just had a sense that you wanted to create in that way?
Yeah, it's something that, and you can see it with any kid of almost any age. They are drawn, and no pun intended, to the crayons or the paints. They love to just make a mess or play around with them, and I was no different. And as I got older, it stayed with me. So, and I just enjoyed doing it, and I think you hit it right on the head. I just gravitated towards it.
Right. I've been to your studio, which is just a wonderful experience, and I have to say, Brian, that seeing your artwork on the internet is really no match for seeing it in person. And I really encourage the listeners who are really going to be tuning in today from all over the world, if they find themselves anywhere near Fall River, Massachusetts, give yourself the gift of popping into Brian Fox Studios and seeing in real time this beautiful artwork. Brian, what I noticed when I saw your work in person was the detail that you've captured. And I mentioned in the intro the Muhammad Ali piece. Mm-hmm. And Johnny Depp, that one, those eyes, that was from Pirates of the Caribbean. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You got it right.
Those eyes are just incredible.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering, I'm curious about this. When you are looking at a person, you have to look more deeply into a person than the average person who's not an artist may. You must see the human face on such a different level to be able to capture such detail. I'm curious about that experience that you have when you've met someone and when you've decided you're going to paint them.
Yeah, no, you just find yourself looking at different things, whether it be some color or light on someone's face, or the shape of their eyes, or the shape of it. Just becomes a second nature thing. I don't even think I'm doing it, and then when I start to ask somebody else, "Hey, did you notice this or notice that?" They look at me like I have four heads and like, "What are you talking about?" So,
right. I can see that you have such a subtle glance that I think probably most people don't realize the level that you're able to see every little blemish, every little wrinkle, every little crease, every little freckle. It's just unbelievable. And I was so really delighted. When you look at a piece of artwork, good art moves a person's heart and soul, and your work really does. It's so captivating.
Well, thanks. I'm glad. I always seem to look at the stuff and not like it after it's done and move on to another thing. So to hear someone say they really like it is very encouraging. So I do appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I suppose that's the challenge of an artist, a writer, a musician, anyone to, it pushes us forward when we're a little more critical than we may need to be with our work. But it is quite extraordinary work. I'm curious about the first time your artwork was displayed anywhere. Where was it? How old were you? And most of all, how did you feel the first time one of your pieces was put on display?
I think it was college, where sometimes you are invited to a college show to be part of that, and it's it's two things. It's one, you get excited because you've been picked and with your peers to have something show alongside them. But two, once it's up there, you're like, oh man, you second guess your abilities, and then you feel like you've exposed yourself up there because everybody comes by and is going to now look at this for the whole time it's hanging on the wall. So you feel very exposed, and you see all the problems or the places you could get better. And everybody does have an opinion on your work, whether you want them to or not. They're going to give you their opinion. True. So it's not easy, especially as artists, to always develop a thick skin to hear it, because on the other hand, you need to hear those comments, especially from people who are trying to give you constructive criticism to get better. There's no way to get better unless you're listening to somebody give you good constructive criticism, but that's not easy to hear.
I agree with you, and there is a difference between constructive criticism and just somebody being negative. And I have to imagine that you've basically discounted just a negative attitude versus someone whose opinion you value, and their suggestions have some merit.
Yeah, and you learn to find those people who, over the years, you learn to kind of gravitate towards those who will give you the constructive criticism versus those who are just going to give you their opinion. However, it's not so easy to tune out those negative opinions, regardless of if they're constructive or not. I mean, that's it's just human nature. You always dwell on the negative comments. So, it's not going to, it's hard to change that.
Clearly, you let the positive elements of both your gift as an artist and your circle who have encouraged you and helped you to move forward, you've let that be your focus, because you've done some extraordinary work over your 20-year career. I think I read you've been at this for about 20 years.
Yeah, but probably a little longer. I hate to admit that, but yeah, a little bit longer. And but yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride, and I can probably best sum it up by saying it's been very surreal, especially the last 10 years. Would you say the last 10 years of when you've really peaked and gone out into the world in the way you had hoped to when you were a college student and you knew you had real talent? Well, when I was in college, I studied illustration and commercial art. So my focus back then was to get work in a commercial field, work freelance and design book covers and magazine articles, and you provide artwork for those folks. And it's a totally different world than where I ended up. And then I went to work for different companies as an on-staff artist, creating whatever they needed 40 hours a week. And that's a great thing to do. But maybe 13 years ago, I was working for a company, an apparel company, multi-million-dollar apparel company, and I quit my job on a literal leap of faith, feeling like God's telling you to quit your job when you have a full-time job, benefits, and everything else, and a mortgage, one young child and another one on the way, and I walk away from a full-time job. People are saying, are you out of your mind? And I was initially going to go do freelance work in the apparel industry, but for other reasons, that kind of changed my course. It didn't happen. So when I quit, I didn't end up doing what I thought I was going to do, and I ended up down the path I'm at now. But it was an interesting... I wasn't planning on being where I'm at. I always loved sports and the celebrities and, movies and things like that, but that I ended up working with these guys directly was not my ultimate plan. Well, that's we have to pause here, but I cannot let this portion of your story slip by, because you did. It sounds like you left a little bit on the table to take this leap of faith. You were trusting something within you. My listeners love that sort of thing. So what were you hearing that caused you to leave your previous profession? I mean, you were going into the unknown at that point by the sound of it, and take this leap of faith. Yeah. Well, being a Christian, and my wife is as well, you kind of hope that you're not making things up in your head, and you're listening to God kind of guide your life. And one of the things was, and I got to preface that by my wife is an accountant. She's very a conservative person. She's not a flaky artist like myself. So it's not like I convinced her. We both kind of were on the same page going, hey, we feel like you should be quitting your job here, and we don't know what's next, but it's a leap of faith. Like you don't. It's easy to take a step if you know what's going to happen. But I didn't know what was going to happen, and it was years before this even developed where I'm at. But it was definitely, hey, time to leave your job. and this was in 2004, prior to the fallout in 2008 of the economy, where everybody still had their jobs, and most people who were looking out for me were saying, hey, are you crazy? What are you doing? There's no security in what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. And it turned out that there's more security in what I'm doing than what most people thought they had with their jobs, when they lost so many jobs and employers were cutting people 4 years later.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wonderful story, and it takes a certain amount of courage, I think, Brian, to trust your gut instincts, to follow your faith. You're sharing with us that you do have your belief system. Mm-hmm. You were hearing, in a certain way. You felt led to take this leap of faith and move in a different direction, and you went with it. And how lovely that your wife supported you in that move. And I'm wondering, well, I don't have to wonder. You look back in retrospect and you say, good choice for sure. You just said that more or less.
Yep.
You knew you were following something different, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. You didn't get a piece of paper out and do the facts and figures and this and that. You were following your gut, your heart, your soul. Am I right?
Yeah, and to this day, I still don't have a plan. I've been winging it for 13 years. And it's funny.
I love that.
You have this. It's true. You have this imposter feeling, they call it. I'm still waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder, going, "Hey, it's time. We found you out. It's time for you to go back to work."
Well, I have to say, Brian, I'm a bit of a stalker on your Facebook. I'm there. I'm there every now and then, and I look at you with the different celebrities, and you do have that look on your face, like somebody pinched me, because I don't even know, is this really happening or what? So I think that's so endearing. It's one of the things, as I said earlier, I have met you in person. I have visited your studio. I've found you, and we've only met a couple of times, maybe all total. We've been in each other's company a half hour. But I really found you to be so grounded, so sincere, so authentic, and that was really one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because I really felt you were all those things I just stated, and here you are. You're in deep into the world of celebrities and athletes, very, very famous people that anybody would know by name, and yet you've managed to stay grounded and true to yourself. I find this very impressive in this day and age, and I'd like, if you could, just share a little bit of that with the listeners. I mean, how does a person do that? You're faced with all kinds of a whole different lifestyle that most of us never even get near, and here you are being true to yourself.
Well, there's a few things, and it really starts with that I believe that, and everybody has these, that it's a God-given talent. So it's very, very difficult to take a lot of credit for something I was born with. So, and true, you have to work at things and you have to spend your time doing it. But it's like if I said to you, oh, well, you have beautiful eyes, and you'd be like, yeah, I picked them at birth. Well, you didn't. You got them, and you were born with them. So it's very similar to that with my abilities, and everybody has different abilities. So, and you're not given these abilities by mistake. I don't believe that. And when I go to speak to schools and kids, I always try to encourage them the same thing. Another part is you never get anywhere without anybody else. So, and people don't see the other folks who help me out and who are encouraging me or who support me in different ways, and starting with my wife, where she's like, she stood behind me. And it was not easy. It was a difficult times, because nobody needs a painting. Nobody needs an artist. We need an electrician. We need a plumber. We need a carpenter. We don't need an artist. I'm a luxury item. So times were difficult, but you need those people that are always encouraging you and always there for you, because without them, you don't get to where you are. So I appreciate you staying humble, because I just look around me, and it's very easy, because I didn't get here by myself. I didn't have the talent. I was born with the talent, God-given talent. I have good people around me who I trust. And two, it wasn't always this way as far as my career or where I am in life, and it won't always be this way. So you go up a ladder, you come down a ladder, and you can see that in anybody else's career in life. So if you can keep that in mind, it kind of keeps you going, yeah, I still live at home, I still live in my hometown, I'm a homebody. I mean, I leave these parties or these events or these people's homes, and I'm like, I got to go. I got to take off. I'm taking them. What do you mean you're taking off? I'm like, I got to go put my kids to bed. You know what I mean? I don't miss my kids' stuff. I'm always around for them. You know what I mean? I don't work weekends because my kids are home. My wife is home. Family first, then work. So keeping the priorities helps keep you humble as well. I mean, I come home from these events and I've taken out the trash. So it's very that's very humbling.
Well, I think that's wonderful, Brian, and I can tell that you attend to the detail of your life with equal value that you tend to the detail of your paintings. I think that's incredible that you hold these values and incorporate them into your daily living. When we get to the next portion of the show, I'd love to hear more about you said you speak to kids in the classroom and that, and I think in this day and age we need to tell our youth a different story than what they're hearing often. So
I agree.
I'm going to want us to talk about that a little bit, because your point of view to me is so refreshing, and in a world where people are looking for, the youth, they're looking for mentors, leaders, somebody that they can look to and be inspired by, and there's just such a bunch of negative out there in the world today.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not sure where kids can look for something that's positive, solid, too. Yeah. I have to imagine this is a four-letter word that seems to bother people all over the place these days. Work. You had to work to get where you are today.
Well, that's the one thing you can. Listen, and people forget that. Let's take the athletes out of even the celebrities and the musicians and all these guys. Most people see let's take athletes, football players in particular. We see them on Sunday afternoon for 3 hours, and we think that's what they do all day. They catch touchdowns, and they don't. They work so hard. Yeah, they're super talented, and they are. And they were born with these incredible gifts of their physical attributes. But these guys work. And you can get a lot from their work ethics. The most successful guys on those fields are the guys who have the best work ethics. They watch what they eat. They practice all the time. They study. Nobody sees that stuff. When you have a peek behind the curtain, you can see how hard these guys work, that four-letter word you just mentioned. Right. You can take that and apply that in any field you're in, any field. Yeah. And you have to understand that. That's so important to do.
Well, Brian, we're going to be up against the break right now, and I would like the listeners, if you're near your computer or your phone, wherever you can get online, I'd like you to search for BrianFoxStudios.com, and you'll have a chance to look at his artwork while we continue our conversation, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. This is Cove Queen Janine here on the road with Cove Queen Janine, and I'm here today with my guest, artist Brian Fox. You can learn all about Brian at BrianFoxStudios.com. We're having a wonderful conversation today about his 20-year-plus career as an artist. Brian, welcome back.
Thanks.
We were discussing, we just touched upon, you had said that you go into the schools from time to time and you talk to children, and my ears really perked up with this because where we left off, we had noted that it took some real work for you to get where you are today. It wasn't handed to you. You had to make some serious choices along the way to pursue something that was in your heart and soul, something you knew you were gifted at. So I'd like, if you could, to give us an idea what you say to the children who I think so desperately need positive role models today.
Well, I say a lot of things, and I kind of go off the cuff usually. But some of the main things I usually always talk about is, one, I don't have a real job, and I'm never going to encourage you to get a real job because of the many times we're born with the talents, like we talked about before, God-given abilities, God-given talents. And I don't believe we're born with those by mistake, meaning that we can use those whatever it may be. I don't care if you're an accountant. I don't care if you're a scientist, or whatever it may be, those abilities shouldn't be lost on you. Two, you have to work at it. You have to understand that it's going to take a lot of work. But not to give up on your dream or anything like that. And the other part is, don't expect money, success, or fame, or any of that stuff to make you happy or to be content. If you're not happy and content now, those things are not the answer to do that. I'm around a lot of people on that side of the fence that have everything they want and they're not happy. So that's not the answer. So don't go looking for that dangling carrot. You keep your priorities straight in life. My priorities are my family first before work. God didn't give me all this ability and all these opportunities to take away from a bigger responsibility, my wife and kids. So, they come first. And then the job will come second. So keep things in perspective. And really, like, if you think about the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. It goes a long way because there are not a lot of people doing that. So
it's true.
And everywhere you go, you'll affect people in a positive way. I don't care what you believe or what your belief system is. If you follow that golden rule, that applies anywhere to anybody.
It's true. It's so simple, and that really, if humanity would just follow that one golden rule, things would transform overnight. And it is very simple and well put. How do the kids respond when you say something like that? Do they get it?
Good. I mean, most of the times I don't like to just sit up there and talk. I like back and forth. I like to talk to the kids. And sometimes it's a whole auditorium when I go in, and I've talked to from kindergarten all the way through college students at different times. I've even gone into a prison and spoke, and you get different responses in a good way, because sometimes people, even those adults who are in prison, they just need encouragement. They just need to know that they're not wasting their time with something as trivial as artwork or artistic ability. And kids especially, they just love to be encouraged, and they need it. So, the response is great. I love to talk to them. I'd like to give back. Because people did it to me. And what I say to the teacher, I say to the kids too, I said, listen, these teachers, they're looking out for you, these coaches or whatever they do, pay attention, because that's what they're here for. And I tell the teachers and coaches too, I said, look, don't tell a kid for 12 years while they're through school that, you have all this talented, your ability, and then at the end of it, when they graduate, tell them to get a real job. Because you've just lied to them for 12 years. And on the flip side, I talk to the kids and I go, listen, I'm a parent. I'll say the same thing to my kid, even though I know. I said, they're just looking out for you. So give your teachers and parents a break. They're just looking out for you. They're worried about you. They want you to get you know what I'm saying? So kind of see it from the other perspective. And at the same time, if I can do what I'm doing, you guys can do what you're doing. I didn't pick up a paintbrush till I was a senior in college. I didn't know how to paint. I know how to draw, but I didn't pick up. So I said, if you guys start now, especially the younger kids, you're going to be better than I am. So you'd have a 15-year jump on me. So just encouragement, being positive with these kids. I always try to leave them with a quote from Picasso, and it's a great quote, and it's fitting to what they're dealing with. And it's basically, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. So,
that's beautiful.
I do a lot with charities. I try to give my stuff away to help somebody who's less fortunate. I tie myself in with charitable events that have a tremendous effect. I mean, I'm only one artist, but if I can plug myself into some of these charities that really help people, you put your stuff in the right hands, then it can do wonderful things. So,
would you like to name a couple of the charities that you've worked for? That's up to you.
Oh, absolutely. absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There's a professional football player, former professional football player, Matt Light, played for the Patriots, and his is the Light Foundation, and he helps inner city kids. And then there was Curt Schilling, who played for the Red Sox, and he helped the ALS Foundation. And when I first quit, I worked with Curt Schilling. It was in 2004 when the Red Sox won the World Series, the bloody sock incident. There was no bigger athlete on the planet. But here's this guy helping these folks out who are in wheelchairs, and they're getting around in wheelchairs by blowing in a tube. So
unbelievable. Yep.
How do you not help these people?
Yep.
How do you not give a painting? Even though people would tell me, like, you don't have a job and you're giving your paintings away, you're an idiot. I'm like, yeah, but I can walk out of there. And I know it didn't sound right financially because I was making no money, but, there's a thing that me and my wife will kind of live by. It's like you cannot outgive God. So if you have it in your heart to give something, it'll come back around to you. You know what I mean? Somebody in need, you give it. So those are the kind of the things I talk about when I go into schools. Those are the kind of things I talk about when I speak in colleges or even businesses or the biggest. You just never know who you're talking to or what's going to happen.
That's true.
I had a young lady, and I know we're going to be up against a break, but I had been speaking so much at one point, and I do it for free, so you don't get paid. And it wears on you because it's timing, and you're not, when I'm out doing these events or speaking, there's nobody in the studio to paint. The elves aren't working on the paint. So I got to come home and I got to work on these paintings. So it adds more. But I always felt that it was the right thing to do. But sometimes it gets so overwhelming, was getting discouraged. I was getting frustrated and discouraged to the fact that I was getting aggravated, and I was complaining to my assistant. I'm like, I can't take it anymore. I'm getting burnt out. The next day, I had a knock at the studio door when one of the famous athletes was in my studio, and I told my assistant, I said, look, you can't let anybody in here. These guys don't want to be bothered. I don't think, you know what I mean? The girl had come to my studio. Long story short, she didn't come to see the athlete. She came to see me and drop off a letter. And she said that the letter, she said, you came to speak years ago at my school. And at that time, I was being bullied, and I was going to commit suicide.
Wow. Powerful story, Brian. Continue,
she said,
please.
You coming in, giving me your business card, and I looked at your paintings all the time, and that got me through it. So years later, here she is. She's not knowing this. I read this letter, and she's getting me through my discouraging time of getting aggravated with speaking and not making enough money to pay my rent. And so it kind of came back around unbeknownst to me. So this is years later that I believe God uses us in these great ways that we have no idea. But when you give of yourself and you do these things, even though it's just a painting or it's just whatever it may be, you don't know what kind of positive effect it's going to have if you do that. You go back to that quote from Picasso, the purpose of, of your life, just find your gift, the purpose is to give it away, so, I go back to that, and it's just a great example just to go, just keep giving away, you know what I mean, just keep helping or just keep that mindset. So
it just moves such a positive energy around. That's an extremely powerful story, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, here on the road with Cove Queen Janine, I only have one goal, and that is to build bridges where there are gaps. And we've had all kinds of people as guests, and in the beginning I said, we might not think an international artist, is a bridge builder, but you've just shared an incredible story, Brian, and you are that person. You are that person who is encouraging people and speaking to children and people in the prison system, and brick by brick, by the way you live your life, by the way you carry yourself, you are brick by brick just laying out a new way for people to maybe transition from something that is on the negative side and just get it over to the positive side. So I really have to say thank you for the work you're doing and how you are using your gift to reach out to people, and you're not attaching a lot of falsehood to it. I don't know how to say it another way, because as I said, you struck me as a man who's very authentic, which was refreshing in the first place. But you're not offering your gifts and your talents all cloaked up in marketing and riches and all of that stuff that a lot of people can get knotted up in, and then they lose sight of the preciousness of the life they've been given. You are acknowledging the gift of the life you were giving so eloquently, really.
Well, thank you.
Wow, that was a fast segment, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got another little bit left, so hang on and people, check BrianFoxStudios.com for more information. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Janine Willette Sullivan, and I am your host here on The Road with Cove Queen Janine, heard on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network every Wednesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and I invite you to tune in. I invite you to go to dreamvision7radio.com and look at all the interesting content there, and I'm happy to be with you today. My guest is Brian Fox. He's a nationally known artist. We've been having a very lively and incredibly powerful conversation today. And Brian, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
I really love what we were talking about, your work with children, your work in the community, your charitable work and all of this. Is there a goal that you have set for yourself that you haven't achieved yet?
That's a good question, and most of my business friends would chastise me for not having one. I have a tendency to kind of my biggest goal is to keep improving as a painter, an artist. I get so frustrated with some paintings that you just want to get better each time. So that's kind of a long-term goal. You just keep going. But business-wise or marketing-wise, there's always something I'd like to do or be a part of, or people to work with. And but as long as I can align myself with good people in the business and good people in the industry, that's really my goal, is to keep searching out those people who do have like-minded views of the world and kind of want to help people and have their charities for the right reasons. And you align yourself with them, and it's a good thing.
I hear that, brother. I'm agreeing with you 100% today. We don't have a whole lot of time left to the show, so I'd like the audience to hear a little bit about some of the projects you're involved in, and I'll let you pick and choose. I know you have a werewolf exhibit coming up. Yeah, the Curious
werewolf.
About that.
Most people say, "What the hell is a werewolf? What are you doing with a werewolf?" But the werewolf is something totally different than my normal work. My normal work is very realistic. It's representational work that I normally do, portraits and landscapes and that sort of work. But the werewolf came from running around let's say backstage at a concert or with these rock stars and different rock stars that I just needed a break from just painting all this other stuff and just had fun with these massive werewolf paintings. And you look at them and you can see Keith Richards, or you can see Steven Tyler in them, and you can see even my brother and these other people, these rock stars that are that we know of. And when you look at it, it's this rock and roll werewolf is really what it is. When I did it for the fun of it, and then what happened was some collectors had come in to the studio one day, and they said, "Look, I want to buy these," and they were not for sale. I said, "Well, they're not really for sale. I just did them for the fun of it. I need a break." And they said, "Look, if you ever sell them, I want to buy them." And I started to scratch my head and go, "Really?" I did it for the hell of it. Well, long story short, I've been selling the werewolf now for a few years, and I can't paint them fast enough right now. So it's and I think the backstory helps, it's just this cool character, and the paintings are sometimes 6 feet tall, and it's just this kind of cool character that it's based on the people I hang out with, and it's based on some friends, and they happen to be rock stars, and they happen to be, actors and musicians, and so people pick up on it, and I just tell people it's like a werewolf makes any room cooler. So I have collectors who come in and they're buying 4 of them right now, like originals. Wow. They'll only buy originals, and so I'm going to have a show for the first time at the studio. I only open my studio up once a year to the public, and it's going to be on October 26th. So if you're in the area, swing by. It's in Fall River, Mass. October 26th, and it's going to be just the werewolf collection. And I'll be able to, people are collecting. I make limited edition prints of the stuff, and I'm launching a line of products that go along with it, and people are pretty excited about it. And I'm still scratching my head over this, but it's taken off very well. Celebrities collect the work now. They have them in their homes, and I can't, there's a waiting list to get paintings, so that's a good problem to have as an artist.
Congratulations. Yes, it is. Very nice problem to have. You sound like your life is well-rounded. And in the beginning, I was thinking you must go to sleep with a paintbrush in your hand, but it sounds like you do other things too. But I'm congratulating you on this project. Are there any other projects that you have coming along that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, it's always what's really fun about what I do for a living is it's always changing. Even though it's painting and creating, it's always changing, and it keeps things fresh. So if I'm not painting for football players, I'm going to paint some rock stars and some musicians. I work with Walt Disney. I create original artwork for their cruise lines. So, I mean, that's a whole detached from what I normally do, too. And then I'm allowed to go on the cruises and have an art show on the ships. So that's kind of a wild departure, and so I'm working on that. I have a portrait. People commission. I do one family portrait a year. That's all I do is just one. And again, some of these guys have been. I got a 4-year waiting list on that. So it changes up a lot. So yeah. I'm working on a project with a brewery out in California that has commissioned me to do paintings for their packaging design. And these paintings are all abstract paintings. There's 30 paintings I'm working on at once to create this different package design for this company. So that's kind of a fun thing, too. And I also have some horse racing. I do a lot of work in the horse racing industry. So I go up to Saratoga or down to Kentucky and work with those folks as well. So it's always changing, it's always fun, and it mixes things up quite a bit, it keeps things fresh.
Does it make a difference for you to actually meet in person the people who you're going to paint,
yes,
the horses you're going to paint, the riders, all of that? Does that add to the depth of your work?
It always helps. The unfortunate part is most of the time that I'm painting, these people are busier than I am. They're hard to get in one place at a time, so you only have a short amount of time with them. But it does always help, and it's much better to meet them in person and talk with them in person or see the subject in person.
I imagine you're able to capture a bit of the personality and add that to the details of the painting.
It does help. I always stress that I'm not capturing it, and I'm always I always feel like I'm missing it, or to the point where if it's not just right, there was one painting I worked on for a full year. It was a 6-foot painting of the lead singer from Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder, and I did it because I was trying to just work on this thing. I worked on it for a year. I hated it so much that I blowtorched it at the end. I just took a blowtorch and just burned. I just couldn't. It was such a crappy painting, and I had people offer to buy it, but I just couldn't. I couldn't put it out there. I'm like, this is just a terrible painting. I blowtorched it. So I felt better after it was done.
Well, I get that. I'm a writer, and I can't even tell you how many poems and short stories I've tossed into my fireplace. So I get that very much.
See, you can understand. Yeah, you get it.
I can understand. I can. I do, because we're our harshest critic. But, in a sense, don't you think, Brian, that's how we pull out our best?
Yep, that's true, and you need that. You need to be critical of yourself at some point, you know what I mean, to get better. And And but it's that bittersweet thing of like, oh, you feel like Sisyphus pushing that rock up the mountain. You know it's going to fall back down every time, but you got to keep trying. It's agony.
You look at your work and you say, I don't like it, and yet, I can't destroy it. I mean, you have a bit of a fight with yourself there a minute before you do whatever you do with it when you're not satisfied. That's true. I understand completely.
Yeah,
you get it. I do get it very much so. I'm wondering, Brian, we're going to be at the close of the show soon. I want to encourage the listeners to visit your website, brianfoxstudios.com. It's incredible. And anybody who can get to Fall River, Massachusetts, and see your exhibit on October 26th, I recommend it. I've seen your work, and it's just incredible in person. I'm wondering, I could close out the show in so many directions. We've covered so much today, but I feel so strongly about speaking to the children, to the youth. I'm wondering, for the parents listening who have this little creative person that they're raising, you really pulled a chord with me, Brian, when you referred to real job. I was raised with that term. What is a real job? It's what you're gifted, what your passions are, it's a real job is so many different things other than punching in 9 to 5 and working for the paycheck. I would love for you to speak for a minute or two to the parents out there with their little sweet, creative children, and they think maybe they have to pound in one way of career to them, and yet the child is so much interested in something else, something so deep and authentic in them. From your own personal experience, what would you say?
It's a great question, and I would probably say something to the effect of back to the encouragement. You find your kid into one thing or another, encourage them in that direction. Kids are going to gravitate. We all do. We all gravitate towards some things we love. At the same time, it's good to think of it as a talent, but it's also a ways to make a living. So, and I grew up in the same way. I grew up where you filled out 3 applications, you put this down, and you went to college. You got a degree, and that helped you get a better job, and that was the goal: get a better job because your parents were worried about you and they want what's best for you. Because that's really the point. And I think it's a communication thing, where kids need to understand that the parents, for the most part, want what's best for them. They're looking out for them. I'm a parent. I get it. And now, at the same time, hey, this is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in writing. I'm interested in becoming an actor. But you have to be realistic. And you might not be a movie star, but you might be directing. You might be writing. You might be writing screenplays. You might not make it to the football field as a pro star, but you might be a coach. You might be a trainer in the NFL. There are many ways to get in to do what you love and do what you do. So don't just think, there's only one way.
That's excellent advice, Brian, because there's so many layers to a dream, don't you think?
Yes.
It's not, totally. I'm going to be the drummer. I'm going to be the linebacker. I'm going to be the author. I'm going to be the artist. There's so many layers to a dream.
Oh, tremendous.
Yeah, because you yourself.
And that's what I try to encourage people. Just going, look, there's not one way, and you can invent a job or a living for yourself.
You're creating your life in the flow every day you wake up. Brian, we're at the end of the show. Thank you so much for being with us today, everyone. BrianFoxStudio.com to learn more. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks, Janine.